Hey everybody, welcome back. We are the Bad Pennies.
We are.
Oh yeah. I guess we're the ones that are back, right?
Bad pennies.
I am Sho. This is my friend Alan. And today we are going to talk about legacy. Okay?
Indeed, we are. And but before we get into it, I just got a couple things I want to mention.
Okay.
So, thank you. I know lots of you are now watching our shorts.
Yes.
Which is great. And since this is a podcast for men about men, one of the things that we do know is that our attention spans are not really, incredibly long unless it's something we're really heavily interested in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Well, since there's literally hundreds and hundreds of you out there now that are watching our shorts, we want to encourage you to watch the full podcast.
Yes.
And that's, I get it. It's an investment in time. All right. It's going to take an hour. Some of them are a little more than an hour. But I think it's worth it because there's a much deeper dive on these subjects, and hopefully there'll be some nuggets in there that you won't get in the shorts that are going to be valuable to you. So I just want to encourage you all to take a shot at it anyway, and if you hate them, let us know, send us a note.
Yeah, some comments is fine. We'll get them. Believe it.
Yeah, we actually do read occasionally.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, with that being said, and interestingly enough, me recovering from the flu for the last few days, it's been a little bit rough. But we're gonna slog through this one.
Okay.
And we're gonna talk about legacy. And I didn't really get the value of legacy in my life until I was in my mid-30s.
I think that might have been where it hit me too.
Did it?
Yeah.
Okay. And what we want to talk about really is presenting legacy in a different way, in a new light, because that's what really hit me was looking at it in a way that I had never looked at it before, and so for all of you out there, I want you to kind of take this journey with us about legacy.
Yeah. That
this way of looking at it is finding our place in the world in the sequence of events that has led to where we are now.
Okay.
Okay? Because in order to really see your place in the world, you have to take a look at what are the events that have led up to you being in this place. Not just in your own life, but
people came before you.
Your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather, the generations, and even all of the men and women that were in their lives, going back beyond written history.
Yeah. Well, I want to first let's make sure we define legacy.
Yes,
okay?
we shall do that actually.
Yeah. Let's talk about what is legacy, and of course, like, we are our ancestors' legacy, and we also are our descendants. No, our descendants are our legacy.
Yes.
Right. So that was where you were going as far as like where we stand in the
world.
world.
Yeah, and actually, after we do this, I'm going to present a different way of looking at it again.
Okay.
So we're going to get to that. So
all right. So let's go with legacy.
Exciting, right?
Maybe
we'll put this in the short. Maybe we won't. Maybe you have to go to the actual podcast to see what we're actually talking about.
Yeah.
All right. So
what is legacy?
So according to the Dictionary for Men, values legacy is a noun, and it is the values, lessons, institutions, social benefits, cultural changes, reputation, moral character, accomplishments, services, leadership, contexts, purposes, and or other things handed down by a predecessor. That's the first definition. The second definition is a personal, family, business, or community heritage. Okay, that could be handed to you from your family. The third one is something transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor or from the past. Okay. And number 4, the things left for the future after one is no longer active in life or deceased.
Yes, all those.
Right, all of those.
Yeah.
And yet, there's one other one I want to add, which is a practice or tradition passed down from an ancestor or predecessor from the past. The impact an individual has on others or society beyond their own lifetime. The impact an event or an institution has on individuals and or society. So the problem that we have with the idea of legacy is that it gets confused with history.
Okay.
Right? It gets confused with history.
They go together?
They do, but they're different, and they're very specifically different. And so in order to be able to understand legacy, we have to talk about history a little bit too. Okay, and the way we're going to define history is that it is a record of past events, the study of past events, a train of events, a systematic account of phenomena. So let me try that again. A record of past events, the study of past events, a train of events, or sequence of events, and a systematic account of phenomena. So when you're studying history, if you look at how historians put together history, they do it in a systematic way. It's an accounting. All right, they put it into timelines.
Yeah.
They coordinate it into, well, this happened and then this offshoot and then this happened. I mean, if you look at how historians actually put things together, not just in history books, but before they even write the history books, how they have to systematically coordinate all of the information into an accounting. And so the difference between legacy and history is just an accounting of what has happened. That's all it is. It's just an accounting of what has happened. And interestingly enough, people add a lot of emotion to history, by the way. They bring a lot of energy sometimes to history, but history is just history. It's just something that happened. And once it's happened, it's happened. It's no longer, the only emotional impact that it really has is the one that you want to give it.
But history is told by the winners.
If you're what?
History is told by the winners.
Often it is, unfortunately, and
so I mean, there's a lot of yes, history should be an accounting of what really happened in its purest form. That's what it should be.
That is correct.
But it does get perverted.
It does, and
we'll talk about history another time.
But we've already talked about honor, and maybe we'll do a whole thing on honor since we're doing a whole thing on legacy. At some point. But we're talking about in this whole podcast here about masculinity and being a man and being able to negotiate the world as it is, right? And where we are right now. So whatever the history has been that has led us to this place, whatever the legacy has been that's led us to this place, we find this is where we find ourselves now, and we have to be able to figure out how to use all of that to our advantage. Okay, because if you don't use it to your advantage, if your history isn't being used going into the future, then it's not legacy. It's just history. If you don't get the lessons from it, then there is no legacy, because legacy is actually the lessons that come out of the history and carrying it forward. So we're going to carry the
legacy is for the future.
Yes.
More than history.
History is what's already happened. Past. Yes. It's just an accounting of what happened. That's all it is.
I can hear that. Yeah.
All right. Okay. We want to make sure that we use our history well. Okay. And one of the ways that we don't use history well is when it's just one-sided, when it's only the winners, right? That write the history.
Yeah.
All right. So and unfortunately, we've had to many times sift through what was written by the winners to find out what really happened behind that. Okay,
Right.
and often the losers also write stuff down too. So
You got to find it.
you got to find it.
Yeah.
Right. It's because often in history the winners have tried to stamp out any information that will show the truth about what it is, because they're writing what their version of what they want everybody to know what happened rather than what actually did happen.
Okay.
So, but again, that's that we could get into a whole thing about that and go on and on forever, but we're not going to do that, because what we want to do is talk about legacy and its value and importance in a man's life.
Yes, legacy's importance in man's life. Exactly. Yes.
In a man's life.
That's-
And so
Let's go.
yeah, let's go. So here's the thing: for all of you that are under 55, you probably are not very concerned about legacy, because what you're mostly concerned about is your careers and your success and what you're engaged in at the moment, and making money and taking care of your family, advancing your business, the work that you're engaged in.
Yeah.
And rightfully so, by the way. That's not wrong. That's exactly what you should be doing. But there is some point in our lives between 50 and 65 or so that something shifts, and those things lose their importance, and what is going to remain after you, it becomes more important, what your legacy is going to become. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the difference here, and I've made some notes, of course, as I always do. By definition, then, as we just talked about legacy in history, that legacy is passed on as a practice or tradition.
Yeah.
So we just came back from a little pause here, and what we were starting to talk about was that legacy, by definition, is passed down as a practice or a tradition.
Okay.
All right. So therefore, if you don't use it, it just becomes memory.
Right.
All right. And or a recording of past events. And if that's all it is, if you're not using it, it's not being passed on, doesn't have a life beyond you, right? Then it's just history.
Okay.
It's just history. It's not getting used. Legacy is a process of passing and carrying forward lessons and putting to use the practices and traditions that are handed to us.
Legacy lives on.
Legacy lives on. History is just an accounting of what happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's the new way of looking at this.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the new way of looking at it, and then and again, to really get a grasp on your own legacy, it's time to start to take a look at perhaps how you fit into that whole process.
Okay.
Right? Whether from your father or grandfather, your family traditions. Or even if that got interrupted, it's okay. I mean, it's not, you can start your own traditions.
Yeah. Some things about legacy, I have it in my notes. Not all things are good. Some things you want to change in your family
you may
legacy.
Right? You may have a legacy you want to interrupt.
One of the
right?
things that's a topic that I talk about with my men's group is about generational curses that get passed on, especially like from father to son, these bad habits and these things that not necessarily good qualities of a man that continue to get passed on. And it's up to you to consciously make an effort to break that cycle.
Well, that's the whole point here. I mean, we're talking about awareness, just like all of the other podcasts are devoted to becoming aware of who we are,
right,
our place in the world, the people that we affect in our lives, right,
yeah,
the and legacy. I mean, again, those negative things that you're talking about get passed on because of being unconscious about it.
Yeah. So you have to really wake up to it.
You have to wake up,
and you have to make the effort to go after those things.
Exactly.
So that you don't give them to your children. So you have to be the one responsible to break the curse so that your children don't continue that legacy.
Correct. So what we want to do here is we want to pass forward legacy, and we want to combine it with all other knowledge that we acquire.
Okay.
Okay, as we gain, as we go through life, we're acquiring new knowledge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we're able to mix it together, and new experiences and new learnings and new practices and new traditions, things that we've embraced that we didn't have before, and we ultimately can pass that on as legacy instead of because again, it's about giving that to others.
Yes.
It's not just holding it to ourselves, because if we keep it here, then it just becomes memory, right? And again, what happens for the people after us is, again, they're kind of like the winners, right? They write what is remembered about us,
right? And that's their version.
Their version of what of us.
Yeah. And so, like, you know, a big thing that I want to make sure it probably will come up later in this podcast, but I want to make sure to say it right now, is that there are things that you can do to write your own story and create your own legacy. And that starts with asking the questions about, you know, what do you see? What will your descendants see?
Right.
You know, you can write your own autobiography. You know, like literally write your own autobiography.
This is true, but did you live it?
That's a good point. Well, that's
the
history
side. How much of it is
right?
true? Exactly. And so all of this starts with, again, with your awareness and desire to develop the quality of your character. And developing, of course, what have we talked about so much, which is character and leadership,
right? For
the last umpteen podcasts, right? So, you know, we've talked about it at length because of the value and the importance that it holds, in our lives as men, and the difference that it actually makes in the world, and the difference that it makes for others. So, and so now we're talking about how are you passing that on? What is it? So we have some questions that we can throw out, and I know you've got some questions written down, and I have some questions written down. But you know, this is something you men can think about what you know. Now that we're talking about legacy, what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
What is you know, show what does legacy mean to you?
Legacy means to me, like we said a minute ago, legacy lives. Right? I want to be discovered way in the future. I want a great grandchild of mine that I will never meet to one day wonder, and like, maybe, I don't know what
watch this podcast, and if it still exists, right?
Maybe that's one thing, right? Or you know, I've written music, and my music I intentionally made sure to get it all registered with the Library of Congress and all that other stuff with my name on it, so that some descendant down the line will be able to find it one day, almost like a treasure, you know? And it'll say my mark. This is what I left. This is what I did when I was here. You know, nobody lives forever. So, but when I was here, this is what I did.
Wait a minute. Did you say nobody lives forever?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yep. That's it. Everybody dies, but not everybody lives. Right?
That's true.
So, you know, with that being said, I want to make sure that it's more than just a tombstone with the beginning date and the end date. I want them to know what happened in the middle.
Okay. So that's what legacy means to you.
Yeah.
Have you inherited legacy?
I have inherited some family traditions that I do recognize that are, you know, when I've seen them, especially on my mother's side of the family, I've seen some of the traditions that came from my great grandparents and my great great grandparents, and I know that those are things that are passed down through their voyage through American slavery. You know, and I do recognize those things, and I've seen those. And it's funny because, like, during my research, I did discover that, you know, a lot of like my mother's habits and the things that she does normally and she thinks are, you know, maybe like a superstition or something like that. This goes back way further back generations that her people were doing way back then.
Wow.
You know?
That is very cool.
There are some traditions on my father's side of the family that I also recognize, in the way that his entrepreneurship I've seen that in my grandfather, and I know my great grandfather was the same way.
Okay. How about in you?
In me, such as like the things that I've inherited from.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how's that entrepreneurship show up in your life?
Well, I'm fearless. I go after, trying to find out whatever it is I can do to find my independence financially, definitely. But just in general, I look for independence in anything.
Okay. You answered all my questions. And I didn't even get to them.
Yeah.
You just sort of answered them in that whole answer right there.
Yeah. Well,
so okay. Well, even the whole thing, and for all of you that are watching, who is your legacy for? Who are you handing your legacy to? And
I think I would like to make sure that I leave something for my children. Definitely, my immediate legacy goes to them, right? But I do have a vision of looking way into the future for someone that I don't know to know who I am. That's a motivation.
Well, that's interesting. That actually is beyond what many actually consider. That to hand a legacy to people that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Right. There's some important points here that I wrote down, and it begins with a reminder that we've all inherited legacy, a significant amount of legacy. All right.
Okay.
All right. All manners. Okay. From lessons, teachings, habits, characteristics, mannerisms, physical and intellectual property, and qualities. We have all been the beneficiaries of legacy, some type of legacy.
Okay.
Someone's legacy, whether it's even society's legacy.
Yeah.
All right. And not all those legacies were positive, because you did mention slavery, and that was a legacy that was not a positive legacy, and one that we needed to deal with and to end. If it's not used, again, this is the next point. If legacy is not used, then it achieves the status again of history.
Okay.
Okay, or memory, and it fades. Memory, history, and memory fade.
Right.
All right. They're often forgotten completely, and what's here's an interesting thing about not using history as legacy. Because when history remains history instead of becoming legacy, and it fades away, it gets repeated.
Okay. Those who don't learn from history are doing to repeat it. Right. That's
exactly
something that's said quite often.
Way often, and it's true. And if you look at history, the accounting of human history, you will see how often that's true. How often that over time the lessons were not carried forward, they were not used, they were forgotten, and boom, there you are again.
Okay.
Having the same thing happen again because the lessons were not carried forward.
Okay.
So what's really important about legacy is that you carry forward the lessons. That if it's the single most important thing from this podcast to get, I think that's what it is.
Okay.
That you take all of this stuff and you get the lessons from it, and then you carry that forward.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That here's the third point. You're gonna really like this one. That men are capable of shaping themselves through their commitment to their legacy.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a focus for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a focus for a lot of you out there, and if it isn't, here's an opportunity to start taking a look at something like that you are actually capable of shaping yourself through your commitment to having and leaving a legacy. And what is that, right? And when I talked earlier about, one of the things that you might want to start looking at when being concerned with legacy is your character. Mm-hmm. Who are you?
Yeah.
Really? Who are you really?
Yeah.
And through your character, what are the actions that you take that make a difference in the world? And all of that, those differences that you make in the world are all part of your legacy.
Right. Right.
And the last note that I made here was that that we can take ourselves a lot less seriously if only we accept that we are the inheritors of almost everything, and originators of very little.
Okay.
It's been a long history. It's been a long world, right?
Yeah. You're not the first one. To
It's very unlikely that you're going to come up with something that someone hasn't thought of before.
Yeah.
All right. So keeping that in mind, you can take yourself a little less seriously.
Yeah. But I mean, for me, like thinking about my legacy is a motivation for me to pursue greatness.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can be a painter who paints, whatever it is that I want to paint. And those paintings can live in obscurity and never go anywhere.
True.
Or I can work on being a great painter that my art lives on well after I die. Like
how do you
somebody
know the
like
difference?
Picasso.
Yeah, but how do you know
like
the
that.
difference?
I think art is subjective, first of all, so that's kind of hard to really say. But
that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at when you say those singular names like Da Vinci and Picasso, you automatically know the name and you associate the name with the art. Okay. I've never met a real person with the name Da Vinci or Picasso. I only know of those famous artists and the works that they did, right? And I haven't even seen all the Picassos and all the Da Vincis, but I know the name. So if there is a person who is descendant from those people, then that's the legacy that they've inherited, right?
Yeah.
Now, what that person who's alive now decides to do with that name Da Vinci or Picasso, if they continue to paint, or Da Vinci, he kind of almost designed an airplane, right? I think
he actually did.
You think, yeah, well,
and a helicopter
or whatever, right? Yeah.
And a number of other things that are mind-boggling.
So if there is a Da Vinci somewhere who is also an engineer, then that's continuing in the legacy of his whatever great-great-grandfather.
Of course,
right?
Again, because he had students.
Yeah.
In fact,
that's another point. Yeah, being a teacher is a great way to push your legacy.
Yes. It is.
Didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I'm only thinking like bloodline.
Okay, well, there you go. So we can open this up. Teaching, I mean, in many ways, it's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So, since we were talking about character.
Okay.
All right. The quality of a man's character can be looked at in terms of how he has used what he has learned. Okay. And inherited as well.
Right.
Okay. So you've been given, even society gives us a lot. We inherit a lot from society.
Okay.
All right. So are you going to pass that forward? Like, what's the phrase? Pay it forward?
Yeah.
You're going to pay it forward. Or you're going to just be the recipient and leave it at that. And what does that say about your character? If you're just taking and you're not giving back and paying it forward, then, what does that say about who you are? And again, when we were talking about your ability to shape your character, mold your character, right?
Yeah.
Based on your commitment to your legacy. What's the difference between those two legacies? What would people remember? First place, the one legacy, you're forgotten almost immediately.
Yeah.
Because who wants to remember somebody that just lived their life taking and taking and taking,
right,
and then they died?
Right.
Oh, and yeah, of course, immediate family are going to grieve, but you're going to be forgotten very quickly.
Yeah.
Because that's all you did, is you just took and took and took, and then you died. But for those who are committed to their legacy, something else happens. There's a growth. There's a quality of character.
Okay.
That develops within. All right. So again, what we're talking about is developing your character.
Yes.
All right. In terms of being able to serve that legacy that you want to leave for future generations.
Yeah.
Because if you were just a taker, again, like I said earlier, you're just going to be forgotten.
Right.
Who cares? Really, nobody cares about that. And interestingly enough, since you were using the painting and the artwork, you could take a life like Van Gogh, and he was forgotten very quickly, and it took time for his paintings to be rediscovered, and for the quality that they were, because they weren't even that appreciated. It only a handful of people. Is that, we used to call that squad. Redundant. A few handful.
Oh.
Few and handful at the same time, right?
Okay.
So, but only a handful of people actually appreciated the work that he was doing. I think he only sold like one painting.
Really?
And everything else that he got, was from his family. I believe his brother gave him money.
Okay.
And stuff, and ended up with a lot of the paintings after he passed away. But you can look up the history. I'm probably just obliterating his history right now. But the bottom line is that when he passed away, in many ways, he was very quickly forgotten.
Okay.
As just kind of a crazy painter.
Was that because his character wasn't strong? Is that where you're going with that?
No, it's just like, it's why I asked the question about how do you know whether the paintings you're doing are going to have a life or not after you.
Yeah.
And
first
you
of all,
don't.
I'm not a painter, really. That was just me trying to.
Right. No.
I'm actually a poet.
So how do you know the poetry? So yeah, whatever it is, how do you know? And you don't.
No. You
don't. But if your commitment is to that art fully and totally and consummately, and that in a way, the commitment is also to a legacy, because an artist knows that the paintings go on way past him.
Right.
In fact, there are paintings that he painted over because he didn't want them out there.
Okay.
He didn't feel they were good enough to be part of the body of work that survives him.
Okay.
So he painted over them.
Right. I think I heard something about that. And then you have to try to
well, I mean, now that he's you can, yeah. I mean, they've got all of this stuff where they X-ray and things,
yeah,
and whatever. But the point is that he didn't paint over it because he thought it was the best painting he ever made.
Right.
He painted over it because he didn't like it.
Right. Perfectionist. I mean, there's plenty of things that I wrote that I decided I didn't want to do.
Exactly. So the thing is that again, his commitment to the legacy was so strong that he was clear what he wanted to leave, and when he, for future generations. And it wasn't until a long time afterwards that the real legacy began to be appreciated and to be discovered.
Yeah.
And where his paintings actually began to affect other painters and painting styles.
Right.
And
because he was a pioneer in his
many ways, yeah. Okay, so as many artists are, they're pioneers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes them artists.
But then, like you said, some of these artists have have pupils.
Some do.
And what do you call them? Apprentices.
Apprentices,
right?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
I've been an apprentice. Have you been an apprentice?
No.
Really?
I don't think so.
I've been an apprentice. God, it seems like I've been an apprentice most of my life, both as a photographer.
Right.
I worked with other photographers, famous photographers, to learn how I learned the craft mostly, but also learned the art, and even doing this work, I've had mentors, and I don't know whether I was specifically an apprentice, but yeah, I think by definition, I don't know. I don't think it's in the dictionary. We'll have to add that.
Apprentice?
Apprentice, yeah.
Okay.
But
well, yeah, there's a lot of men out there that actually, use apprenticeship to their advantage in building who they are and their legacy.
Well, yeah, and Da Vinci had many apprentices, and they worked together on stuff. I mean, there was. I don't think, some of his legacy could have not been done just by himself alone. Mm-hmm. Right? He had to have others helping him. Okay. And so, But again, we're starting to get a little bit off track. But the bottom line here is that your character is needs to be looked at in terms of how you use what you've inherited. All right, and your legacy is the handing that off.
Okay.
To others going forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. I made some other good notes, but I can't read them when they're folded in half. Okay. The good news is that you've inherited or have the option of inheriting benefits of the works of literally thousands.
Yes.
Thousands.
Yes.
Remember that your legacy isn't just, your family, your dad, your grandfather. That's, or even, where you went to school, all of that stuff. I mean, it is part of that.
Yeah.
But it's more. It's more because our legacies are or what we've inherited is a product of the legacies of literally thousands, tens of thousands, millions that have come before us.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's not just the ones that worked in your particular area that you like or that you're interested in.
Yeah.
It's everything. It literally is everything.
Okay.
And so we get the opportunity again to not only not take ourselves too seriously, because we are just one little piece in this chain, this long legacy chain.
Yeah.
And of life, really. Going back, I don't know, what are they saying now? 2 million years or something like that? At least a million.
I don't know.
At least a million. I know that anthropologically, they were thinking that we looked like we do now and had the brains the size we do now and walked erect the way we do now 100,000 years ago, but now they're thinking it's more like 200,000 years ago.
Okay.
And there's some evidence that it might be even 500,000 years ago. So we've been around for a while.
Yeah.
We've been around for a while, and we've had large brain capacity for a long time, and all of the product of all of those human beings is really here. I mean, even in this room, I mean, you look around us from all of the books and, everything. It just shows up in that great case of scotch and bourbon over there, too. That's legacy.
It is. Okay. Your name is your legacy also. Your last name, right? People talk about last names and
it can be
inherited in your
it
legacy.
can be.
When you have when your name becomes like a brand,
of course,
and then you're born into that family, you're also born into that brand. If your last name was Kraft and you're actually part of the Kraft family,
right?
You're born into that family and the business, and the whole legacy carries on with you, right?
It can, but here's the thing: you can't just sit back. Again, just like anybody that doesn't carry it forward,
right.
Because it's. Remember, the good news is that we've inherited this. All right, that's the good news. Whether you're a Kraft family member, I know we're going to get letters from Kraft now. I don't know, but it's a name only unless you do something with it.
Okay.
Right?
It's your responsibility to do something.
Thank you so much, because what a segue. That was just the most perfect segue.
Go.
So remember, we said the good news is that we are in the inheritors of an incredible amount of legacy in our lives. That's the good news. Here's the bad news, is that one way or another, we are responsible for what happens with that inheritance.
One way or another, we are responsible.
One way or another. And it is up to us.
Yeah.
And what we do with it is a reflection of who we are.
Yes. Okay. I like that. I like
so
that.
So that's the bad news. All right.
Yeah.
Because
That's okay though.
I always talk about like the bad word, right? With the bad word is responsibility.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but we are responsible for what we do with all of this. So sure, I mean, maybe that brand will carry on, and there will be people that carry it on, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a family member is going to carry it on, unless they choose to.
Okay. And also, there could be some family members that abuse the privilege.
Of course.
Well, so there's other people in the family that have to take on responsibility. They may not have the name, but they're still part of the family because they're part of the brand anyway.
Well, again, it's a quality of character.
Yeah.
And you were given this great legacy and inherited all of the stuff.
Yeah.
Now, what do we do with it?
Right. And then, like what you said before, earlier when I had that eye-opening experience, like this is more than just bloodline. There's plenty of people that have benefited from the legacy of the originators. Once again, we'll go with Kraft. But there's plenty of people whose legacies are tied to that legacy. And there's plenty of people who have benefited from the originators as well as the descendants of the legacy itself.
And it spokes out, just like everything in life, just like,
and like you said, millions and millions, we're all part of all these other legacies.
We're all part of this. We're all part of an incredibly long legacy going back at least 500,000 years.
You and I sitting here next to each other is part of the legacy from the Civil Rights Movement.
I thank God, really.
And every person that was involved in that. It wasn't just, everybody says the major names, but there was...
Well, there are a lot of legacies involved that are even more intertwined than just that movement.
Yeah.
A lot. So anyway, but we'll get into that one maybe another day. That'll be an interesting discussion. So the two big takeaways.
Go.
All right. The first one is that we are inheritors of almost everything and originators of very little.
Okay.
And that legacy is how we take all of that and get the lessons from it and pass it forward, so it doesn't remain just an accounting and fade away into forgotten history.
Yeah.
And the other one is that we are responsible.
Yeah.
We're actually responsible for this. We can't just pretend that it's somebody else's problem or for somebody else to do.
Mm-hmm.
That legacy does not happen unless you take the responsibility for it.
Yeah.
There you go.
You have some control over your legacy. You don't have complete control over it, but you can shape your legacy by the actions and choices that you make in your life.
Right, by how you shape and mold your character.
Yeah.
Using a lot of the tools that we've given you already.
Yeah.
A lot of the tools that we've talked about, including practicing disciplines, being a disciplined man, and in terms of, again, just developing who you are and who you want to be in the world.
And then that character is seen by those around you. I think of, me watching my father do things. He's not actively teaching me something, but I'm still learning by watching him, right?
Well,
and just being under him and a lot of what I am, I got from him without him even actively teaching me something. Just
Well, I'm gonna throw in. I'm gonna disagree. I think he was actively teaching you. He wasn't. It was just more disguised. Okay, because there are a couple of ways of teaching, and one of the ways that when we think of teaching, we think of somebody standing up in front of the room with a chalkboard behind you and writing down stuff and making assignments and giving lectures.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, and arguably that is one way of teaching. There are a lot of people who feel that that's not necessarily the most effective way to teach. All right. It is a way.
Yeah.
And it is what they use in schools. But it seems to me that one of the most effective ways of teaching is what your father did.
Just being the example.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's because you got to see who you wanted to be through how he was.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the most effective way. It's like, I think we said this on one of the podcasts. If you want to be a good father, the best way to do it is to be a good husband.
We didn't say that in any podcast.
We didn't? Really?
No,
we said it in this
we
one.
We said it now. Say it again.
Yeah, it's
Say
out there now. Holy moly. Okay.
If you want to be a good father,
the best way to do it.
The best way to do it is to be a good husband.
To be a good husband.
And then let your children see that example.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're teaching by example.
Got it. Okay.
Not just a good husband, a great husband.
Right.
You have to be a great husband, right? And I mean, would you want? I mean, just like anything that men do in their life, you want to half-ass it, or you want to do it well, right? You want. I mean, when we take something on, we take it on.
Yeah.
Right. We take it on, and men forget that when they take on marriage, they forget that it's also something they've chosen to take on, and that they can master that, being great husbands. You can master being a great husband. And what an incredible effect that has on your children.
And then that's a legacy in its own.
Yes, because your children will grow up, hopefully, emotionally and psychologically stable.
Somewhat.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of factors that it contribute to growing up these days. But look, you give them the best chance. At least from a parenting standpoint, you give them the best chance.
Yeah.
And so, and isn't that what we want to do for our children, right? We want to give them the best chance.
Right.
So, so again, you take it on like anything else you take on, and you be your best at it. You give your absolute best to it. You be your best at it, and otherwise, I mean, would you respect yourself if you didn't?
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Me personally, no. And, a lot of men that actually have a mindset of self-improvement and self-worth, they would definitely would.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, so we opened a couple of can of worms today.
Yeah.
So I think, what's what Colbert does? So that was for you, Stephen Colbert.
Yeah,
so
right
I just threw the card over.
There's Colbert's legacy right there.
Absolutely.
So, Bad Pennies, episode number 8, I think we're at.
Yeah, something like that. Although we broke 7 into 2 podcasts, didn't we?
You're right. Okay.
So this might actually be 9.
Or anyway,
8 or 9. I don't know. We've lost track already. So because we can't, if it gets past this many fingers, we can't count.
It doesn't matter because we're going to do like 150 of these things anyway. Yeah,
there'll be lots and lots of them. Go watch the long one if if you stuck this one out. Get the men, get together and with your buddies and watch a podcast together and then talk about it. I mean, this is this isn't just meant to land like a bomb on the floor. This is an opportunity to get into discussion with other men and talk about these subjects that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think so. I think that your conversations can continue from where we left off.
Yeah. And do send us your comments because we definitely want to know. And if you have questions, ask them.
Right. And we're supposed to say like, share, subscribe. So that you guys remember, hit the like button, share this with your friends, get it out there. And then we need subscriptions, okay? That helps the algorithm so that other people can start to see what it is that we're talking about. And you guys all have the same mindset. There's a lot of people out there that think the way we think and think the way you think. But we need to teach the algorithms who those people are.
Yes, and then we need to get to the ones that don't think this way.
Right, those too.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Just from the standpoint of taking responsibility, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
because
the ones we really want to reach, the ones that don't think like we think.
Right, but we want to help everybody.
We want everybody to have a great life. That's all we care about, really. From the Bad Pennies,
we'll be back.